Welcome into this Monday morning edition of Pushing the Pile. Mike Renner, JP Acosta, doing a little combine recap. Risers. We're not doing fallers. There's no fallers coming out of the combine. We need the whole breadth of their pre-draft process before we're going to say who really, maybe went up or down. But there are some risers. We're going to talk about guys who impressed. We're going to go through position by position, give one player a piece, maybe shout out to a few more because there are some positions that trying to decide. I think offensive tackle was one, linebacker another, where it's just like, dude, you could throw a dart and hit a guy who was awesome in this year's combine. So we'll do that at the top and then get to mock drafts at the end. JP, though, what were some of your biggest takeaways from the weekend watching in Indy?
This edge class is so fun on like day 2, where I think a lot of this draft in general, like it doesn't have the juice that previous drafts have at the top. Or like that in terms of like instant impact, like players. But I do think the day 2, day 3 group is where most of the money is going to be made in this draft class. I think there are a lot of interesting players. I think there are a lot of interesting storylines. And there are a lot of at least starting caliber, starting quality guys in day 2, especially in the edge group. We're going to talk about a couple of guys who I think have put themselves firmly into day 2, like round 2 scenarios. But I do think that this edge class has a lot of fun players to go on day 2, and we haven't even gotten to most of them like actually testing.
It also is the shortest armed edge class of any I can ever remember. We were just talking before, like, I think they're shorting the arms. I think they're messing up. Like, no one measures in with 35-inch arms anymore. I think they're putting the tape measure at a different spot on people's shoulders than they were in the past, because we had Cassius Howell come with 30-1/4-inch arms, the Texas A&M defensive end. When he gets drafted, he will be the shortest armed edge since Sean Phillips in 2004 to get drafted just at all. And then we had Gaden Curry actually come in below that, the Ohio State edge, 30-1/8, and then Ruben Bain come in under 31 inches as well. And as we said before, 31.5 is the low man in the NFL right now, Micah Parsons, in terms of starting edge rushers. So all three of those guys well below the threshold. But then every 40 seemed like it was juice too. So they're short in arms, juice in 40s. Let's get to the guys. Let's start with quarterback. Who's your quarterback that impressed you the most in Indy?
As much as I want to say Taylon Green for putting on like an NBA like dunk contest level performance, I'm going to say Garrett Nussmeier. I think he was the most impressive passer during the drills on Saturday among either quarterback group. I thought he threw it with great accuracy. I thought the timing that he was throwing with was really good, even though he was throwing to guys that he had never thrown to before. And I think he is starting to work himself back up into conversations. I'm not saying he's going to be a starting quarterback, or I think he's got some star power, but given how much he's talked about how he was injured this season, the ab injury suffered on the second day of fall camp, and how he performed in 2024 when he was sort of considered a potential first-round pick, I do think he's starting to work himself upwards, while I also sort of think, like, let's not go too far with Garrett Nussmeier. I do think he helped himself a lot with his performance.
Yeah, I think in terms of pre-draft processes, he had the best one between the Senior Bowl, between the combine, just from because again, the testing, great. That athletic testing, you obviously want athletes, whatever the position is. But at the quarterback position, it's about throw. It's about, can you get the ball from A to B? And he's done that better than anyone at the Senior Bowl and at the combine. So hard to argue with that one. Where do we see Nussmeier after all this? What's a realistic range? You think he's a firm day 2 pick at this point?
I think I would lean more towards day 2. I think the 3rd round is about where I draft him. I think if you're looking for like, I don't like doing comps, but he's very similar to a guy like Mac Jones, where you have him, you come in, start it, like he can start games for you, but you're not necessarily like tying your entire franchise to him right now. I do think that he can be a serviceable young backup to a starter, or a guy that you're worried about their health. And so you draft those guys in the 3rd round. You draft a guy like, Dylan Gabriel got drafted in the 3rd round last year, so who really knows? But I do think that I think he's more of a 3rd round guy at this point.
My guy that impressed me the most at the combine was more for what he did at the podium, what he did in the interviews, and then obviously what he did as an athlete. It's Cole Payton from North Dakota State. He was, when listening to all the podiums, watching all the interviews back, he had a maturity to him and a just messaging that he looked comfortable up there. He's a guy that you can picture going into a huddle and leading a team and being just basically unfazed. He was a 4-star recruit that went to North Dakota State and sat for 4 years without transferring before he got his shot. And then at the combine, he runs a 4.56, 40-inch vertical, 10-10 broad jump, high-end athletic numbers, backs up what you saw from him on tape. I think he is in, after this process, I think he could be in the quarterback 3 mix, because we've talked about that after the top 2, there's not a lot of high-end physical talent in this draft class. There's not a lot of high tools. He probably has the best mixture in terms of tools and tape after those top 2 guys and Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson. So would not surprise me after this if he ends up in that day 2 mix as well.
And I honestly kind of thought for his Senior Bowl, I thought he was the best quarterback of his group. I mean, of course, that's not like a super high bar. He was with Diego Pavia and Sawyer Robertson in his Senior Bowl group. But I do think he actually wanted to try and throw the ball downfield. He wanted to test the defense vertically. I think he does have some nice tools alongside the athleticism that you talked about and that he showed. And, like apparently something is in the water in Fargo, because they had 2 guys absolutely go nuts at the combine this weekend.
All right, we got to talk about Taylor Green, though, just for a second, because the best combine ever for a quarterback position, that was Anthony Richardson. Now it's Taylor Green. He comes in 6'6", 227, 34 3/4-inch arms, runs a 4.36, 43.5-inch vertical, 11-foot 2-inch broad jump. What do we make of this Arkansas quarterback?
That 4.36 40 looked so effortless.
Yeah.
Like when they showed it on TV and he's just gliding, like I was like, oh my gosh, he's moving. But like then they said 4.37. I was like, whoa, I didn't think he was moving that fast. But that sort of backs up what's on tape. He's an explosive player. I mean, when he gets out and he runs and he gets his legs out in front of him, that dude can cover some ground. And I think a lot of his performance is I think that athletic performance is really help him get onto a roster. I think for him, it was also important to say, like, he is going to be a quarterback. I think him saying that he doesn't want to try and play any other position, I think that was really cool of him. I think it was also really smart of him, because he does have the athletic tools. And I think it's going to take a team with a little bit of patience. But we talked about like how QB3 is wide open. A lot of his performance throwing the football was a little erratic. There were some sprayed misses, but when you talk about downfield passing, I thought he looked pretty good throwing the ball downfield. Who knows? Like we said, QB3 is wide open, and I could take my chances on the 6'6" guy who runs a 4.36.
I'll just say, as an athlete, bringing into my building, Jalen Milroe went 3rd round last year. I would rather have this athlete than Jalen Milroe in terms of like what he brings to the table and what he could be at the next level, because that is freaky stuff, what he put up at combine, and has a freaky frame. I, though, am more of the opinion that like he should switch positions. It feels Terrell Pryor-ish when I watch him. And Terrell Pryor, when he switched positions, year and a half later, he's a 1,000-yard wide receiver in the NFL. I'm not saying Taylor Green's for sure that, but like these are, not almost every position on the NFL football field that is a skill position is more of a traits-driven position than a skill position. When you have a guy who is a high-end athlete like that, it puts you close to the front of the pack, whether it's at wide receiver or at tight end, to develop. I think he could be a true like $20 million plus year guy at either tight end or wide receiver if he wanted to switch and dedicate to that. So I don't know. I see a guy as a passer who's so erratic at this point that I would at least be working on some wide receiver drills. I would at least be in front of a jugs machine if I were him, just because the potential is so high with an athlete like that. Let's move on to running back, where we had a few guys going the 4.3s. You have your boy, who you've been talking about all draft season. I knew you were going to pick it. Who is it?
That's right. Arkansas, Mike Washington Jr., throwing down a 4.33 at 223 pounds. Like, he's not like he's a rocked up 223, and he is huge. And run that 4.33 151 10-yard split. The explosiveness shows up on tape. The biggest thing for him, and you could tell like the emotion after he ran the 4.33 was also really cool. NFL Network had him on video like crying, talking on the phone, like he was saying he was talking to his family. Like that's really cool. And I think for him on tape, that explosiveness shows up. The straight line speed, the ability with to break tackles. I think that shows up. I do think his change of direction's a little like iffy, which is why he didn't do any of the shuttles. He didn't work out. But when you run 4.33 at 223 pounds, it's one of the bigger running backs at the combine. You're going to make a lot of waves. And so I think with Washington testing the way he did, I sort of think RB2's kind of wide open after Jeremiah Love. I've been of the belief that that RB2 group is still up for grabs, and Washington doing that at that size puts him firmly into that conversation.
Yeah, I think he goes for like easily a day 2 pick at this point. You got a guy with that sort of size, speed, and given that his tape was good as well, it's like he will be in that mix. I went with Jeremiah Love though, because not only did he go 4.36, and I mean, we knew he was fast, 32-inch arms, but for the sheer fact that the guy was rumored to be a top 10 pick, felt pretty safe to be a top 10 pick heading into this. And he went through the workouts. That is a rarity nowadays. I got to tip my cap to all the guys who are in that mix, who go there and compete in Indy, because I think it just shows who he is as a competitor, that he wants to go out there, not just rest on his laurels. Doak Walker Award winner, again, like the unquestioned RB1, and he wanted to go out there and prove that he was. So after numbers like that, I don't think he's fallen outside the top 10.
It's also really impressive that he ran that 4.36 at 212 pounds. Like, for comparison, Jahmyr Gibbs ran a 4.36 at 199. Like that's the level of speed and explosiveness that we're talking about right now with Jeremiah Love. And I think that having him like run that way and then doing the drills incredibly. I thought he was one of the standouts during the on-field workout, the quickness in his feet, the explosiveness. He also caught passes as a receiver afterwards. I think the discussion about Jeremiah Love should go from like it should go to how high is he going to go in April. I mean, there are rumors that he could go as high as number 4 to Tennessee. And I think that would be valid considering this draft class, considering that he is one of the 3 best players in this draft class. So he had an awesome performance, and I'm excited to see how high he goes when we get to the first round.
All right, let's get to wide receiver. Who we got?
So at first I was going to take a little bit of a cop out and just say all the day 2 X receivers because they all had a great day. But I'm going to go with Deion Burks from Oklahoma, a guy that has been sort of let down by quarterback play. Started at Purdue, where obviously Purdue and quarterback play don't really go together well. What transferred to Oklahoma, didn't really have the most consistent quarterback play at Oklahoma. So you're sort of wondering, like, the dude's a great, we knew the dude was a good athlete because it showed on tape, and defenses sort of took away Deion Burks from that offense. But dropping a 4.3 with a 1.49 10-yard split, 42.5-inch vertical jump, 10.11 broad jump, 26 reps on the bench press for a guy that's 5'10", 180, and he is a built 5'10", 180. You're thinking about a guy like, oh, wow, like the explosiveness and the juice shows up. Like, again, we're thinking like day 2. He's sort of, again, he's a little bit smaller. I think he's probably going to be a slot in the NFL. But that explosiveness, the juice with the ball in his hands, I'm curious that he made me want to go back and watch the tape to see what happened at Oklahoma, what happened at Purdue, because this guy is going to step into the NFL as one of the premier athletes at the receiver spot.
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of like a Rondale Moore-ish, where he's just so, it's not heavy, he's 180, but he's so strong and like well proportionate at that, and then just a ball of explosiveness. So interesting to see what role he ends up. But we kind of picked similar guys. I picked Zachariah Branch from Georgia, who I don't know if I had questions about his long speed, but I was just like, what kind of, because he played in the slot, like half his receptions are screens. They don't really use him as a vertical guy. He looks fast, but like how fast really is he? Because you rarely see him open it up. Well, 4.35 is pretty darn fast for a guy who's, like I said, primarily going to be a slot. But I really loved, I think, why I put him here, was the route running and hands he showed on the football field. His ability to flip his hips. I don't think he's relegated to just slot at the next level. The frame is obviously much more of a slot, but his play strength and ability to run routes on the outside in those drills, I think he could do a little bit more than just a slot. And then his wingspan came in at a good number, over 6 foot. So he's under 5'9", but an over 6 foot wingspan. That puts him longer than guys like Zay Flowers, Ladd McConkey, who are, 1,000-yard wide receivers, who are productive guys in the NFL. So with those numbers, with that kind of athleticism, I think it can work. I'm not taking a chance in the first round, maybe not even the second round, but I think he's firmly now going to be a day 2 pick and can be more than just a gadget guy, even if the size might not suggest that.
He looked really fluid running routes and catching the ball. I think, like you said, we knew he was fast. We knew he was explosive. That showed on the tape at USC and Georgia. But the fact that he was able to run routes so fluidly, catch the ball really well. He caught the ball really well in the gauntlet. I think, like you said, I was a little hesitant on what his NFL upside would be, because he just didn't run a lot of real routes in his college football career. But now being able to show that at the combine, you can run real routes from anywhere on the field, I'm a little curious how high he goes. I do think he's a little more of a slot, but my comparison was like Zoomer Curtis Samuel, but I think he can do a little bit more in terms of route running. So I'm excited to see where he goes and excited to see how his process goes after this, because he's a huge riser after this.
Let's get to the tight end position, where this was another position where you could throw a dart and basically every single guy tested well. Who are you going with, though?
I'm going with Stanford tight end Sam Roush, who he was one of the biggest tight ends there. At 270 pounds, he's massive. I believe he ran a 4.7 40, 1.61 10-yard split, had a 38.5-inch vert, and the biggest thing is he was moving that sled. He was absolutely taking the sled to the shed. He was huge as a blocker, which is what he's going to come into the NFL as. He's going to be that tight end 2 who can block, because he does have some issues catching the football. So he's going to need a couple years on a jugs machine, but there's potential here to be one of the few guys who can be an inline threat as a tight end, as a blocker, but also as a receiver, because he has the explosive capabilities. We see the 38.5-inch vert, 10.6 broad jump, got the explosiveness in the upper body with the bench press, be able to block a lot of people really well. And if you go watch a Stanford tape, he is doing some big boy blocking stuff. They have him whamming defensive tackles. He was base blocking Reuben Bain. There's a lot of real tight end stuff on that tape. So him being able to throw down some really impressive athletic numbers is good for him.
Yeah, I'm curious where the blocking tight ends end up in this year's class, compared to maybe some of the more athletic but less capable blockers, just to see what the NFL is kind of valuing at that position, because I think he firmly falls into that camp. But a 4.7 is more than good enough to be a productive receiver at the NFL too. My guy, I'm going with Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt, because I kind of came in saying, he's not tight end size, and he still isn't, right? 6'3", 239 is what he came in at. Better than what he was listed at, though. I think that's always big. He was listed at 235 and comes in bigger and still tests like an elite athlete. So he still maybe could physically develop and still be a high-end athlete, but 45.5-inch vertical ties the combine record at 239 pounds, 11.3 broad jump, 4.5 140. Truly a spectacular athlete. And again, this guy was playing quarterback in 2022. He's only been playing tight end for 3 seasons now, and has already been one of the most productive in the NFL, or in college football. That sort of athleticism with that ability, at that size, even if, he's lighter than Chase Claypool was coming into the NFL, I'll buy that, because you could put on 10 pounds of pure fat and still be an elite athlete. I think he'll get there. He's got a good wingspan, 6'7" 3/4. So Eli Stowers, I would bet at this point in time, comes off the board as tight end 2.
What do we think about him? Instead of going up in weight, what if we drop him down to 225 or close to the 230 range and just make him a slot receiver? Let's just make him a wide receiver, because those explosive numbers, I worry a little bit that he is capped out, like frame wise. Like, how much more weight are you adding to him without losing speed? Of course, he added 4 pounds and he was able to run the 4.51 and jump out the gym. But how much higher can you get him to where you're feeling confident that he can block in line? But I do think, like, if you just go the other way, drop him down like 225, that's a really impressive slot receiver that you have on your hands. So I'm just curious about it. But him jumping 45.5 inches, I thought it was a typo at first.
Dude, I couldn't believe it. I was like, because I saw the weight earlier. I was like, okay, 239. It came in heavier. And usually 9 times out of 10, guys come in heavier. They test fine. You know, they don't usually test better than expected. And obviously, I don't think anyone expected for him to tie that vert jump record. Got to give a shout out, though, to Kenyon Sadiq, because best combine since Vernon Davis at the tight end position. 4.39 40, 43.5-inch vertical, 11.1 broad jump, 26 bench press reps. I mean, it truly could even be, depending on how you view it, better than Vernon Davis is, but a special athlete.
It's, again, with Kenyon Sadiq, I said it on CBS Sports Network, it's not about like if he goes first round anymore. It's about how high he goes in the first round, because that is a freak athlete. Like, when you look at him run and then you look at how he's built, he's got these really big legs, and that's where most of his power comes from. I do think like there's potential for him to be a really, really high impact player very quickly, because at tight end, you're just looking for athleticism. You're looking for the guys who are really good athletes, and he is the best athlete we've ever seen at the combine. So I'm willing to bet on that in round 1.
All right, offensive line. Who we going with? A lot of options here.
There were a lot of options. Like you said, you could have thrown a dart and sort of picked out an offensive lineman that tested and worked out really well. I wanted to give a shout out to Maxi Ianachor from Arizona State. I thought he was a really good performer. But I'm going to go with Chase Pizantis, the guard from Texas A&M. I've always been a fan of his. I think he is one of the best pass protecting guards in this draft class. Throws down a 176 10-yard split, 505 40, I believe. Like it. And he just looks smooth and effortless during the drills. And I think that athleticism, the ability to change direction, I thought that stood out really a lot. The broad jump, little worrisome, but also 315. He's big. He's able to redirect. He's smart in pass pro, and he wants to finish a lot of blocks. So he's one of my guys on like day 2. I don't think he gets into day 1, because this offensive line class is probably going to have a lot of tackles go early. But day 2, I think he's going to be one of those guys who becomes a really, really good starter in a couple of years.
Yeah, I think we get 8 offensive linemen round 1. That does not include Pizantis, but if he gets in, could even be 9. They will go early, though. And the guy who could go very early is Spencer Fano. The Utah offensive lineman is my pick, because not only did he test extremely well, 4.91 40, 32-inch vertical, 9.3 broad jump, 7.3 4.3 cone was the fastest of anyone there, 4.67 shuttle. On field just look different than everyone else, just so smooth. And I think his wingspan coming in over 6'8" is a great number, even if his arms were shorter than you'd like at 32.25 for an offensive lineman. I think he still stays at tackle. I think he still can with those numbers. And the guy just tested off the charts. Now, everyone did. Ianachor tested off the charts. Monroe Freeling tested off the charts. Basically, any first-round tackle. Caleb Lomu as well. Blake Miller. Now, Caden Proctor wasn't quite the freak everyone thought, but he had a 32.5-inch vertical at 352, which is 2 inches higher than any other 350-pound human being's ever done. So, in his own way I think the only one you call a faller is Francis Mauigoa, just because he didn't test, because everyone else looks great and he's over there sitting on the sideline. So after all those guys went through, I feel confident saying basically every guy that I just mentioned will be a first rounder when it's all said and done. The athletes are too good. That's what translates at that position. And the tape is good enough to convince someone to draft him in round 1.
Fano just looked effortless during the drills. I was talking about some of my friends. It's just like he's moving at a different speed than everybody else. The efficiency of movement really stands out. But what stood out the most is him taking reps at center, and that sort of intrigued me. So I'm like, okay, What if he moves to center instead of going from tackle to guard, move him from tackle to center? That's an elite athlete at the center spot. I think that sort of masks his limitations a little bit, but also you're able to highlight his movement out in space as a center and his smarts. Like, I just think it makes sense for him to move to center. You have somebody who can play tackle. In a way, it's sort of similar to Graham Barton a few years back, how he moved from tackle at Duke to center in the NFL with the Bucks. So I'm very curious what the NFL thinks of him, and the fact they wanted him to take center snaps is telling. But I think he has the ability and the athletic potential to play every spot on the offensive line, and you'll at least have a quality starter.
We'll see where he goes in our mock draft a little bit later on. We're going to take a quick break. After that, flip over to defense side of the ball for our biggest risers.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, defensive tackles. Who we got?
We're going with a guy that I have loved since this pre-draft process started. It is Oklahoma's Grayson Halton. He was a guy that I sort of thought would kind of kill the combine, and he did everything that I thought he would do. He's still undersized. That is not going to change, but 170, 10-yard split, led defensive tackles in vertical jump, was second in broad jump, and he looked really good throughout the drills. He is not a traditional size like defensive tackle. Like I said, 6'3", 293, 31 and 1/8 inch arms. But he has huge hands, and he has that potential to go a lot higher, because in a draft class without three techniques outside of Peter Woods, you're going to look for those guys, especially as we return more to those even fronts and guys that we want to see get pressure from the interior. I think Halton is very similar to a guy like Sheldon Rankins in terms of like build and what he brings to a NFL team. I think he's at least going to be a quality starter. So him having a really good combine sort of backs up what you see on tape, which is a guy that gets upfield quick and in a hurry.
I hate to be same school scouting guy, but he reminds me a lot of Jalen Redmond. It's just like in what he did, whether it's at Oklahoma or now with the Minnesota Vikings, just like a explosive off the ball, undersized bowling ball that can be a weapon in today's NFL. My guy in this was another undersized, explosive defensive tackle, Caleb Proctor, who was another one he's listed at 280 on Southeast Louisiana. Came in 291, and he runs a 4.79 with a 1.68 10 split. Elite explosive numbers from him: 33-inch vertical, 9.5 broad jump, and has 33-inch arms. So he's not only like shorter, but has good length too. And watching his tape, whether it was at Shrine Bowl or at Southeast Louisiana, I mean, he's just a twitchy mover, whether it's his lower body or his upper body, and back that up at the combine. So he's my favorite. Like, take a chance in the 4th round and just see what he can do. You know, see if he becomes something, because there's obviously an athlete in there that can be a pass rusher at the next level. Those are high-end pass rushing numbers. It's just, we never really got to see it against real competition.
He's another one of those guys who, like I said, like in a class without many 3 techs, like that group after Peter Woods of Proctor, Zane Durant from Penn State, who had a really good day, Grayson Halton, like how those guys shuffle out and how they're addressed when it comes to the NFL is going to be really interesting, because you still need those guys. You still need those quicker guys who are going to get penetration. And I think, like you said, like if you draft him in the 4th round and just see what happens, you take chances on guys with that level of athleticism and the body type that he has. The fact that he's undersized, has longer arms, is going to really help him out in terms of the draft evaluation. So he's another guy that I'm gonna have to go back and watch the tape on, because he was the talk of the Shrine Bowl. He obviously performed well at the combine. So he's having a really good pre-draft process.
I'd get to the edge. Who we got?
So I have denied Dennis Sutton from Penn State. And he was a guy that I was sort of iffy on leading into the combine. I want to go back and watch his tape after, because he really impressed. At 6'6", 263 pounds or 256 pounds, ran 4.63 in a 40, 39.5-inch vert, 10.11 broad, 6'9", 3 cone, which is what really got me excited. And he looked really fluid in the drills. And when you watch him on tape, when you watch some of the, or I guess like the introduction to Deni Dennis Sutton, he's got a flurry of pass rush moves. He's got the hand technique down. He has the ability to win with long arms. And that's something that I'm really intrigued by as just a day 2. We're going to see what happens with him, because at that height, with that length, being able to bend like that in the 3 cone, being able to change direction, that could be at least something. He feels very Spags-ish. Like every year, Spags for the Chiefs drafts a day 2 edge who's a senior prospect, who everybody's like, well, that checks out. I think Deni Dennis Sutton is that Spags edge this year.
Dude, he more so than I think anyone else at the combine did not expect. Like put up most guys who do that, right? Who have a 39.5-inch vertical, 10-11 broad jump, 6'9" 3 cone. You see it on tape and you're coming in being like, okay, watch out for this guy. At no point was I like, watch out for the Deni Dennis Sutton blow up at the combine. So he's one of those, when that happens, you just got to go back and check the tape. Like, what did I miss? I will have to go back and watch him this week because never saw that on tape, but I'm very curious now because obviously those are special numbers. All right, my guy, Malachi Lawrence from UCF. Guy I loved on tape already because he plays so violent. 6'4", 253, comes in at 4'5", 240, 40-inch vertical, 10-10 broad jump. I mean, truly better numbers athletically than, David Bailey, who's getting considered, top 10 pick based off of his athleticism. And so I love the way Malachi Lawrence played. I like that. I had him top 50 guy, knowing he's a good athlete, but not this kind of athlete. And just the way he is able to play violently in the contact consistently. If you're this kind of athlete with that kind of mentality, I'm betting on your chances of succeeding at the next level.
The way he moved in the drills backs up what you see on tape. For me, when I watched him, I saw a guy who could flatten the corner really well for a guy who is a little bit bigger, a little bit longer than guys who normally flatten well. Like in this class, Cassius Howell is a guy who doesn't have a lot of length, but he flattens and gets to the top of his rush really well. Malachi Lawrence can corner really well at 6'4", 250 pounds, and that explosive tape, those explosive numbers really shows up. I'm like you said, like I was really intrigued by his tape. He was one of the guys I watched pre-combine. It's like, okay, I see the vision now. But watching him do this at the combine, like we're talking about like legit round 2 potential, because you don't find a lot of guys who corner like he does, who win as a pass rusher in the way that he does with his hands, with the ability to dip. And he's able to run a 4.5, 340-yard dash and jump 40 inches. So that athletic potential, also mixed with just the production that he had in his final season, I'm willing to take a chance on that.
Yeah, I think that's top 50 pick when it's all said and done. Just in this class, given what he's put up, I feel confident saying that. If we want a linebacker, where if you tested, again, I don't think there's a single guy I even looked at that I was like, oh, that wasn't great. Pretty much every guy did themselves some favors. The slowest 40 was a 4.63 in this linebacker class. Who are you going with, though?
So I'm not going with the Avengers at Ohio State because you sort of knew that they would test well. But I do want to shout out Sonny Styles for breaking everybody's brain at the combine. And then Arvell Reese, who ran just as fast, but also was like, yeah, I'll do edge drills too. But my guy that I'm going with is BYU's Jack Kelly, because truly did not expect him to throw down a 4.19 short shuttle and a 7.12 3 cone. That was not what I was expecting out of Jack Kelly. 4.57 40-yard dash, jump 37 inches, 10.5 broad jump. That's sort of what shows up on tape is his explosiveness going forward as a blitzer. I think that's really the most impressive thing about Jack Kelly. You can have him add on in the blitz game, but he's another guy that, played a lot of games at BYU. Can add on in those. As a linebacker, you're sort of hoping for NFL evaluation. You can add on as a blitzer, or you're really good in coverage. That's what helps you get drafted. And the fact that Jack Kelly can do that, despite, I was sort of thinking like, I don't really know what he's going to test like, but the fact that he was able to do the short shuttle the way he did and show that explosiveness, I think that would really help him out.
he's another guy who started his career as an edge rusher, actually. We talked about that a lot with Jake Golday, but he started off as an edge. You still see some of that with him. He actually has 25 plus pressures in every single year of his career. So another guy that if you're a blitz heavy scheme, you'll be in the market for. Now, a guy who I probably wouldn't say that about, who's my guy, is Jacob Rodriguez, the Texas Tech linebacker who, the most productive linebacker in college football this past season. But I think the question was, what kind of athlete is he? Because on tape, it's just like, middling, okay. These are better than okay numbers, man. At 6'1", 231, he ran a 4.57, 38.5-inch vertical, 6'9" 3-cone, 4.19 short shuttle. Again, he's not really a blitzer. He's much more of a second-level defender, but his instincts are great, plays the game the right way, doesn't miss a lot of tackles, going to force some fumbles, going to make plays, and that's an athlete that can get by. I think he could end up sneaking into round 2 after a combine like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't leave the top 50, like we talked about Malachi Lawrence. That 6'9" 3-cone and the 4.19 short shuttle, again, was not expecting that from Jacob Rodriguez, because I saw on tape, like, he's a okay athlete. He does a lot of the cleanup work behind that defensive line, but being able to just put those athletic numbers on tape, it sort of backs up his ability to close space in the run game. I think his eyes in the run game can be a little inconsistent, but again, former quarterback, he sees the passing game so well. You're going to take a chance on him because, because of those athletic numbers and the fact that he's just, again, the most productive linebacker in college football. You just want to see if you can get him on a field and see what happens.
All right, let's get to cornerback. We got.
Again, I feel like I sort of parody myself a little bit because at receiver, I have a type big, tall, fast. And the fact that Deion Burks was impressive to me was like important because he's not a big receiver. I feel the same way about corner. If you're big, tall, fast, you have my attention. And I went with Ephesians Prysock because he is big, tall, fast. He's 6'3", 196 pounds, 4.45 40, 33-inch arms. He got 39-inch vert, 10.4 broad. And honestly, he and Takario Davis, his teammate at Washington, Davis was the faster guy running a 4.41, but I thought Prysock looked a lot better in the drills. I think he looked smooth, transitioning his hips. I thought he looked really good, changing direction. But again, like, if you're tall with long arms at the cornerback spot and also a good special teamer, I'm going to take a chance on you just to see what happens, because you don't find a lot of guys that big, that long, that fast, and able to jump as explosive as he does.
Yeah, I completely agree about him versus Takario Davis being Prysock just looks smoother. Davis, good athlete in his own right, great frame, very clunky for a guy that tall, and that's like what you worry about. So Prysock, I think, helped himself out. I went with Chris Johnson, the San Diego State corner, because I thought he was one of the best in the on-field. And the question with him was like, looks like a fine athlete, but is he, the kind of athlete that can really play man coverage in the NFL? I think those numbers say yes. 4.4 40, 38-inch vertical, 10.6 broad jump, 17 bench press reps at 6 foot 193. And what I love about Chris Johnson, and this is deep in the weeds scouting, really short legs, really long torso. I don't know if you noticed this, but like some guys jump out at you when they look like that. Jackson Smith-Njigba is kind of like the one I always go back to, is he has really short legs and a really long torso. That's the ideal build actually on an NFL football field, because you have a lower center of gravity. You can change directions better, but then you can also get to guys easier. You have that longer lever arm that is your upper body, because you're bending over at the waist, right? So you have that advantage to get that first touch at the cornerback position. So I want my corners and wideouts built like that. Chris Johnson is, and that's why he looks so smooth in those on-field drills.
One of my favorite things about Chris Johnson, and again, gonna nerd out a little bit, this dude's awesome on special teams. Like, he is just a special teams ace. That's going to get you in the door immediately, because if you're going to draft him in the second round, which is where I think he's going to go, he's going to contribute on special teams. His tackling is really good for a corner. He wants to be involved in the run fit. And the question I did have was, how fast was he? Like, how quickly could he track and how quickly could he regain if he lost a step behind a receiver. And throwing down a 4.40 is really impressive for a guy that I didn't think had that much speed to him. But the fact that he was able to run with guys makes me more excited about his potential in man coverage schemes. But his instincts, his tackling, willingness against the run, and then the ability to show that he looked good transitioning his hips in the drills, he's not going to leave day 2. I don't think he's going to leave like the first 30 minutes of day 2.
Yes, that's a top 50 pick, in my opinion. After that, speaking of top 50 picks, we got a couple safeties that I think are locks as top 50 picks after what they did in Indy. And your boy had maybe one of the best combines of any safety in attendance.
We have been banging this drum for a very long time. Traden Stukes from Arizona. I was super excited to see him work out, and he did exactly what I thought he would. At 6'1", 190, 4.33 40-yard dash, 1.5 10-yard split, 38 vertical jump, 10-10 broad jump. Pulled up within the 40-yard dash on the first time. So I sort of think he could get even lower at his pro day. Like he could run 4.2s at his 40 and the 40 at his pro day because he pulled up during the combine with a hamstring injury. But the thing that stands out when you watch him on tape is the ball skills and the range, and that backs up with the speed and the instincts. He has the ability to play nickel and safety, but being able to run that 4.33, being able to be explosive, that shows up when you watch him play at Arizona. So explosive mover with the ball skills and the versatility, he's going to go a lot higher than you think, even with the injuries.
Yeah, and I think it backs up what I've been saying. It's like, I think this guy, he played slot. I think he could play outside. I think he could play safety. I think he's just anywhere you want to play him, even if he really didn't wear a lot of hat, even if, he didn't do a bunch of that at Arizona, I think he could still very easily do it. My guy, Dylan Thieneman, Oregon safety, a just box ticking, high-end athlete, 6'2", 201, goes 4.35 with a 41-inch vertical, 10.5 broad jump. Again, if you're a safety and you're getting drafted round 1, this is what it usually needs to look like. And I think he's going to be a first-round pick in this class. I'm surprised Nick Emmanwori didn't go last year. I think a lot of people regretted that after how he looked. Dylan Thieneman, with those sorts of numbers, is going to be a first-round pick now.
I think the thing for Thieneman, for me at least, was how good he looked in the drills moving side to side. That was my biggest question about Thieneman in the drills and off of his tape is he looked a little stiff in the hips, but you can either be stiff or you can have bad footwork. You can't have both. And Dylan Thieneman has some of the best footwork I saw of this safety class during the drills. It looked like teach tape. He did not, when you're watching the DB drills, you want to see if their head level changes. His head level did not change. I think the phrase is like you could put a plate on their head and that plate wouldn't fall during the back pedal. And he looked super good. Again, with the footwork, with the ability to get downfield. He has this ability to be a hammer in the run game, which is what Oregon really asked him to do more of. They play a lot of split safety coverages at Oregon. But if you go watch him at Purdue, like the range and the athleticism show up at Purdue. Like he was a single high safety there, and he was making a lot of plays all over the field. So I think he has performed himself into surefire, like round 1 position.
Speaking of that, I'm going to get to a mock draft here right after a quick little break.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema.
Ready or not, here I come. Let's go! Are you not entertained?
The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
All right, we're going to go back and forth on this. Round 1 mock, doing what we think will happen now, coming outside of the NFL Combine. Do you want pick 1, JP? Or do you want pick 2?
I'll take pick 2 because I feel like we know what's going to happen with pick 1.
Well, I also don't want pick 3. I think pick 3 is the worst spot in this draft because I think we know what's going to happen at pick 2 also now. I would guess after that Jets trade of Jermaine Johnson to the Tennessee Titans, pretty much freeing up one of their edge spots. I think I know where they're going to go with that, but like pick 3, I still don't know. Let's just dive into it. Raiders, pick 1, Fernando Mendoza. Don't overthink it. It's happening.
Yeah, this is the easiest number 1 pick I've seen in a long time. And I think people have sort of like, I think people look at Fernando Mendoza and don't think he's a super impressive quarterback. That dude can play some football. And I think people are really surprised at him measuring in at 6'4", 236 pounds. The dude's a really good athlete. Like, I think that gets sort of underrated when we talk about Mendoza. Like, I think he was a little bit of a limited runner, but I mean, if you watch the games at Indiana, he's making a lot of I call it the rage quit plays, where your defense is on the field on 3rd and 8 and the quarterback scrambles for 9 yards, or 3rd and 6 and the quarterback scrambles for 7. That's Fernando Mendoza to a T. He's super tough, durable, throws deep ball well. This is a lock for a number 1 overall pick.
I just got to say one thing about him. Him at the podium, he is very, like, the maturity. I know you see the clips where he sounds like a little nerdy and at times, but like, the guy is very composed. I was just very impressed with how comfortable he was taking a bunch of questions. Definitely not, I think there's stereotype of nerds that they're socially awkward. Like, maybe he's a little socially awkward, but not in a nervous, anxious way. He is very comfortable in his own skin.
2nd overall pick, I think this one's easy too. I'm going to go Arvell Reese. I think him practicing and working out at edge, him saying that he is an outside linebacker. Like, I think that was very much directed at the Jets. And then the next day they traded Jermaine Johnson away. So I feel very confident in Arvell Reese as an NFL player. I do think he's sort of reliant on where he goes and how he develops as an edge or a linebacker. But I feel like he's sort of, I'm not going to say like he is a 1-to-1 player comp because that's unfair to him, but Dante Hightower should be like what you expect and what you want from Arvell Reese in terms of changing your fronts and manipulating fronts. I think Arvell Reese can do that, but him going to the Jets, I think he's going to be an edge. I think he has the athletic capabilities. It's just about getting him reps there if he's going to be there full time.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think that's, I don't want to say locked in stone, but just that feels like the pick for the New York Jets. All right, number 3. And again, I think this one's very difficult. They could go Caleb Downs. I think they could go David Bailey, Ruben Bain. But I'm going to go here, given that it's Mike LaFleur, given that it's an offensive head coach, given that the offensive line is terrible, I'm going Spencer Fano.
Ooh.
Best athlete. And kind of, I don't want to say last year being a proof of concept, because obviously in the playoffs it didn't work great, but like Will Campbell's impact on that team during the regular season was still a big impact. Spencer Fano, I see as a better prospect than even Will Campbell. I think he has more of a prototypical even tackle frame than Will Campbell did. And because of that, I think that's kind of the building block. He's only played right tackle in his career. That's where you need him. That's who I'm taking if I'm the Cardinals.
I'm fascinated by Fano over Malinois, but I'm also like considering with the Cardinals, how much of a chance is Sonny Styles in play at 3rd pick? Like,
I couldn't do that to them with their linebacker history. With what Steve Keim did to him.
Steve Keim PTSD, like,
exactly,
very much exists for drafting an off-ball linebacker. But I do sort of see it. With the way Sonny Styles performed, I could see it. Definitely could see it. I think this one should be easy for the Titans. They should sprint up to the board and pick Ruben Bain Jr. This is Robert Saleh's like dream edge at that spot. That is a perfect fit for him. He is a wide 9 player. He can just cave in offensive tackles. And again, when you have Bain on one side, Jermaine Johnson on the other, Jeffrey Simmons in the middle, like, you have the ability to have a little bit of an interesting pass rush. Now, there are going to be questions. I hope he answers those questions about his flexibility at his pro day. But, I mean, just turn on the tape. The dude's a good player. Don't really care about the arm length. Like, that hasn't mattered for him at all. I don't think it will matter.
Yeah, and I've been saying, or I was saying in Indy, he treats every rep in the run game, every rep as a pass rusher, like it's a bench press. And short arms help with bench press. Like that's how he plays. He plays like he wants to just shoot an arm through an offensive lineman's chest. And you actually, again, if you have shorter arms, it helps you in bench pressing. So I think you'll be just fine. All right, Giants, number 5 overall. Here's where I'm going, Sonny Styles. I think
Yeah.
Harbaugh wants the man in the middle of his defense, has always kind of had it, always kind of coveted it. Traded for Roquan Smith, drafted CJ Mosley in the first round. I think given how freaky he is, that's someone you would want behind that freaky defensive line to clean things up.
And the thing about Sonny Styles, he's a freak athlete, but he also is a linebacker. He has the instincts and the ability to play in the run game as a linebacker. He's not necessarily he can take on blocks really well. He has the ability to play in coverage as a former safety. This is, of all the very good linebacker prospects that have entered the NFL in the last couple of years, Sonny Styles is the best linebacker prospect. He combines the best of everything into 165, 245-pound linebacker who runs a 4.46. So this would be an easy pick for me if I was the Giants. Now
before we get to the Browns, I was just going to reference Titus Howard. The news is can't go down officially, but they traded for him this morning. 5th rounder, gave him a 3-year extension. I don't think he can go through till the end of the league year, but I'm guessing that is your right tackle of the future, is what that trade is for. You can argue that's a lot of money, but would you rather have Rasheed Walker or Titus Howard? I'd probably rather have Titus Howard, but that's where the desperation is at the tackle position for Cleveland.
What are the Texans doing? I don't understand what the Texans are doing. They have traded away their best offensive lineman again to see what happens and rebuild the offensive line in the aggregate. With this pick, I'm going to go Monroe Freeling from Georgia. I think there is a chance that he is the first. I think there's a chance he's the first lineman off the board come April. I think there's a chance he's the first of the pure left tackles to come off the board. I think his combine performance was just when it came to on-field drills, I thought he was just okay. He has some moments where he's a little bit like a baby deer, where his feet get out too far from his body and he kind of slips and falls. But he's so technically sound. He got better as the season went on, and he's 6'7", 315, ran a 4.95. That stuff is going to help, and the bend and the flexibility, I think that's going to really help. The Browns are going to draft the big, tall guy at left tackle.
He is the most prototypical left tackle in this class in terms of height, weight, length, size, speed, all of that. And so because of that, I do expect him to be the first left tackle off the board, because pretty much every other guy is a right tackle, whether it's Fano, whether it's Maui Noa, whether it's Ihanachor, whether it's Blake Miller. Caden Proctor's the only other one who's left tackle, and I'm not sure a lot of teams are going to see him as for sure a left tackle at the NFL. So because of that, yeah, I think Monroe Freeling is going to go a lot higher than people expect. Number 7, Washington Commanders, a easy one at this point. I think they go David Bailey. Just the desperation for edge rush and just any athleticism wins out here with David Bailey.
I have been a little vocal about I don't know if David Bailey is a top 10 pick in my world, but
right there with you.
There are 10 picks. 10 people got to go. And Bailey, if there's any chance that I think he is going to be a high quality player in the NFL, it is in a defense very similar to Brian Flores, where he's just able to tee off upfield, or you can just drop him into coverage. And I think that's what Durante Jones is hopefully bringing to Washington. I think that hopeful scheme change is telling a lot about what Dan Quinn thinks and what he believes, and sort of being hands off with the defense. So David Bailey, he brings juice, he brings speed, he brings youth, and that's something that the Commanders need a whole lot of. This is a very interesting pick here with New Orleans. Give me Jeremiah Love. With the way the receiver group, the top of the receiver class is very interesting. I think Carnell Tate, everybody went up in arms about Carnell Tate running a 4.54 when, if you watch him play, he's not a 4.4 on tape. He's not a 4.4 guy. He gains ground quickly, but I said before the combine, he's probably going to run 4.52, and he ran 4.54. But I do think that's going to drop him. Jordan Tyson's medicals obviously going to drop him. Mekhi Lemon might be more of people might see him more as a slot only, but Jeremiah Love is the best offensive player in this draft class. He is very similar to Alvin Kamara. And if you're going to let Kamara walk, you bring in Alvin Kamara 2.0. It just makes sense for the Saints.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately where he ends up. If he fell to 9, I think he'd go 9, but I don't think Kellen Moore passes on him. I just don't. All right, number 9, Kansas City Chiefs. I think they go offensive tackle. I don't think Brett Veach is a dummy. I think he realizes that the positions you can't get in the 20s are the positions where they've been struggling. Offensive line, your offensive tackle, excuse me. It's hard to get those guys outside the top 10. And so I think they're going Francis Mauigoa here.
Ooh.
At number 9 overall. Get the right tackle. Juwan Taylor's gone. Jalen Moore has not played much right tackle. And I think just long-term, this keeps your left and right tackles. They're on their first 2 years in the NFL. It could be there should feasibly be there for the rest of the Mahomes era. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to keep saying, is one going to fall to us? This is your chance to get one, in my opinion.
There's an interesting pick because everybody sort of mocks the first receiver group to fall to the Chiefs. But I do think with where the Chiefs have struggled, I'm not going to say they haven't struggled at receiver, but they struggled a lot more at offensive line. And that offensive line has been the downfall. And the reason why Mahomes has gotten injured twice in his career has been because of the offensive line. It's been the reason that they got smoked in the Senior Bowl, not in the Senior Bowl, in the Super Bowl last year. You just keep adding high picks and high quality talent to the offensive line to finish out the rest of Mahomes' career. Because if you put anybody, I'm not gonna say you can put anybody with Mahomes, but if you put basic starting receivers with Mahomes, he can make them look great.
Mm-hmm.
Lock and stone, Caleb Downs, number 10 to the Bengals. Let's keep the train going. We're gonna manifest this. At this point, what else is there to be said about Downs? He is one of the most impressive football players in this draft class. His IQ is off the charts as a football player, and I think that's what the Bengals need in that defense.
Yeah, I think that one. I was on Bengals doing an interview here with one of their beat writers, and I was just like, they have to draft him. They literally just have to. Your secondary's been so bad. He's so perfect for it. I don't give a darn about safety value, whatever you want to say. Guy plays down the road in Ohio State. You've seen so much of him. He'd be a fan favorite. You have to do it. You have to do it for your Bengals. All right, 11, Dolphins, an interesting one to me because I would love to get one of the corners here, but I also think they desperately need some size in this receiving core. Talked a lot about last year, but they're just tiny, just a really small receiving core. So I'm going to go with Carnell Tate, the Ohio State wide receiver, just to give a little more catch point ability, a little more red zone threat, just someone who has that wingspan to go up and get it, to diversify this receiving core. And I think he's, even after the 4.53, I'm not worried. I think the comp I had from was Corey Davis. That's kind of the athlete that Corey Davis was. It's not a huge deal for me at all.
The ball skills at the catch point are arguably the best of this top 3 receiver core, this receiver group. And again, for Tate, it's the smoothness at which he runs his routes. He's a very efficient mover. He's not explosive. He's not a super fast guy, but he's efficient with his movements, and he improved year over year at Ohio State. So I'm not worried about taking him at 11 because it's such a perfect complement to Jalen Waddle. And Waddle's explosiveness downfield. You have the smoothness, you have the explosiveness. It makes a lot of sense. 12, I'm going to go Mansour Delane. And I think that the Cowboys love Delane. I feel like a lot of what is left to combine is that they want Mansour Delane at 12. Jamal McCoy, obviously, McCoy is my CB1, but I do think the injury might scare teams off. Delane is super good as a man coverage corner. I do worry a little bit about long speed, and he came in with a little shorter arms, but the Cowboys have made those guys work, and they just need talent in that corner room.
Yeah, I think 12 feels like a corner for them, whether it is Delane or McCoy. That's what I kind of keep going back to with them just because of where the value will be. All right, 13 Rams. See, I don't know that a team like the Rams, given just their team building strategy, we obviously know they need a corner. I think Jermon McCoy would be awesome there and a big upgrade over what they got. But I think they just might not really covet corner like that. I think at pick 13, they might see it as a premium pick and say, I want to go either offensive line, wide receiver, or defensive line, a guy you really can't go elsewhere. So because of that, we're going Peter Woods here because he's the kind of athlete that fits what they want to do defensively. And you just aren't going to find a Peter Woods in round 2. You're just not. You're not going to find a guy who has the goods the way he does. So Peter Woods, scheme fit, add more to that interior, keep that defensive line just a nightmare.
I also wouldn't count out Kenyon Sadiq at 13.
Okay.
And just go full into the abyss as a 13 personnel team under Matt in the final era of Matthew Stafford. But Peter Woods fits the body types that they like on the defensive line. A little bit shorter arms, but quickness, the explosiveness, the power that he plays with when he's locked in. And he's going to be locked in with the Rams because you can rotate him in and out. Just keep adding to that defensive line. 14. As much as I would love to go receiver, as much as I would love to add to that receiver core for Lamar Jackson, give me Vega Ioane.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just hand in glove fit. I don't think Ioane is going to leave the top 20 come April. He is the best interior offensive lineman in this draft class. Smarts, the ability with his hands. I do think he might be a little limited range-wise, but I think it just makes sense with how their offensive line looks.
Yeah, that one, it makes too much sense, in my opinion. All right, Bucks at 15. I do think this is probably too high for LB2. They drafted a couple corners last year. I would love Jermon McCoy for them, but I don't think that happens. Man, let's go with this. Let's go Caden Proctor, and he's going to play guard there for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Left tackle, Tristan Wirfs, left guard, Caden Proctor. That would be a terrifying proposition in the running game.
That is a house. You are building like the most dominant left side of a run blocking unit. There is going to be no more running running for 3 yards off that left side. I thought you were going to go Sadiq there, but
that because Otten's going into free agency. I just thought they've invested. I guess maybe not, but like they went receiver last year in the first. My thought was go offensive line, but Sadiq would make a lot of sense here.
Also, I'm scared as a Bucks fan if they take Sadiq, it'll be OJ Howard 2.0.
It's the Steve Keim off-ball linebacker PTSD.
Yeah,
but it's OJ Howard. 16. We have manifested it. We have dreamt it. We have made it to be true. Mekhi Lemon. Let's just go ahead and make this happen. It is hand in glove fit for them. They already have Arvell Reese. Just put as much offensive talent around whoever's going to play quarterback.
The rumor is Mekhi Lemon did not interview well at the Combine. He had what I would call the most bizarre podium session. He came in with the most interesting energy of any prospect I can remember. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know what more to say. I don't even know how to describe it. It was like an unbridled confidence with he felt like he was playing football right then and there. Is what he just like he wanted to like take a pass and stick his helmet into a defensive back like at the podium. It was an interesting cat.
The spin zone is I want my wide receiver ones with unbridled confidence. If you're telling me that you have football intensity at the podium for the Combine, that's wide receiver one. He's always been my wide receiver one, but the football intensity, always love that.
That's what I was actually texting someone who was like, I don't know if I'm drafting him after that. I'm like, dude, I'm definitely drafting him after that.
I'm super drafting him.
That makes more sense, actually.
I'm drafting him twice.
All right, there's our top 16. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to the back half of this first round.
This is why we do this every March.
Major slam!
It is a basketball party.
It's March! Expect the unexpected!
All right, he fell to the Lions. To me, this is a great dream scenario for them. Jermod McCoy, the Tennessee cornerback, a true shutdown man potential corner for the Detroit Lions.
If he gets back to his 2024 look, this could be a huge steal for the Lions. He had the most impressive tape of any single season for any corner in this class in 2024. It's just the injury that might scare teams off, but I don't think the Lions are going to be very worried about that as they try and go and win right now. 18, the Minnesota Vikings. So the Vikings during the combine are set to release at the beginning of the year, set to release Javon Hargrave and Aaron Jones. And as much as I would love to put Avion Terrell in this defense, because I think Brian Flores loves Avion Terrell, I'm going to go with Caleb Banks here, because the biggest issue that they had last season was when teams got big, they got punished running the football. I think Caleb Banks is one of the biggest boomer bust players in this class. I think he has the size and the athleticism, as was shown at the combine, to really be an impact player, but his pad levels got to get worked out. But you don't have a lot of youth on that defensive line, and you need to start getting young right now.
Yeah, they have issues on that Vikings team with their cap situation, and Caleb Banks is a very intriguing prospect. 5'05", 40 at his size was pretty ridiculous. All right, 19, Panthers. Man, I don't know exactly where to go here, because I think it's probably a little too early for a safety. They don't really need corner. It's probably the one position they're solid at, although Avion Terrell would be very interesting playing the slot for them. Do you draft a slot at 19 overall? Defensive line-wise, I don't know if there's much talent that I love at pick 19. So I'm going to go offense. I'm going to go Caleb Lomu, because Icky ain't playing this year, more likely than not, given when he had that patellar tear late in the season. He's a guy that, they're going to need a left tackle. Maybe this kicks Icky into guard when he does come back, or, no telling, given how serious that injury is, what his prognosis will be. I think Lomu at least gives you a floor at left tackle here.
It's really interesting going tackle, because even when Icky comes back, Taylor Moton is set to be a free agent, and Taylor Moton's contract is coming and is expiring. You can move Lomu to right, and again, your tackles are set. But for this year, because Bryce Young is going to be playing on the 5th-year option, you need to find out right now if Bryce Young is your guy. And you can't really do that if you have a big hole at left tackle. So I understand going and grabbing Lomu. I think he's a really nice fit for that offense. Man, 20, Dallas. They already drafted Mansour Delane, so that takes out a corner here. And there are linebackers I think would fit. I'm gonna go CJ Allen. As much as I wanted to go with Thieneman after that combine performance, their linebacker group stinks. It is not good right now. They let Logan Wilson go in free agency, which was bound to happen because he wasn't great for them either. But they're moving Maris Liufau to edge to kind of save whatever they got from Maris Liufau. So your inside linebacker group is Kenneth Murray, DeMarvion Overshown, Damone Clark. It's DeMarvion Overshown and then a hope and a prayer. You got to go get a linebacker. I think CJ Allen is probably the best of the second group of linebackers after Styles and Reese go, but I think he's just a rock solid player in the middle of that defense.
Yeah, they need anywhere in that front seven, just someone who's good. And, well, Allen is. All right, Steelers, 21. Not going Ty Simpson here. He's going to fall in this mock. We're going Jordan Tyson.
Yeah.
The injury slide stops now. They need a wide receiver desperately who can get open after DK Metcalf. So we are going to go with one of the better separators in this class.
I say separation skills match perfectly for them. 22, I think this is the furthest he's going to fall. I'm going to go Keldrick Falk, because this is the defense that I think Keldrick Falk would absolutely kill it in. With the versatility that the defense plays with, if you're hoping to keep Jesse Minter's scheme or at least the idea of Jesse Minter's defense. Falk can play inside. He can play outside. I think if you're going to let Odafe Owe walk, if you're going to let Khalil Mack walk or retire if he retires, I think there's just so much potential here for Keldrick Falk to really become a monster in that defense.
See, I thought you were going to say Kenyon Sadiq, because Kenyon Sadiq, I've been saying, he's the Mike McDaniel tight end. So I thought that was his floor. But this is realistically Kenyon Sadiq's floor. I have him going to the Philadelphia Eagles here. As much as it would go crazy to get Dylan Thieneman in that secondary, we're going to go with Kenyon Sadiq.
And given the fact that Dallas Goedert's a free agent, and given the fact even if they bring Dallas Goedert back, you cannot keep playing Grant Calcaterra. I never want to see Grant Calcaterra snaps again.
Ideally, he does come back. I think the duo makes Sadiq
Goddard and Sadiq is really good. Like, that can be, again, sort of the idea is similar to Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. And what Likely does is a split blocker. I think that will make a lot of sense in that wide zone offense Sean Mannion's bringing, and just the explosiveness that Sadiq brings will be huge for that Eagles offense. 24, already drafted Monroe Freeling if you're the Browns. I think they go wide receiver here, and I'm going to go with KC Concepcion here over Denzel Boston. I just think the separation skills are going to matter more in that offense. If you're thinking, like, again, with their head coach coming from the Ravens, Todd Monken, you think about Zay Flowers, you think about Rashad Bateman, what they're able to do. They are able to create separation. And I do worry about Concepcion's hands and his catch technique, but I do think the separation skills and the speed are going to be huge here.
Yeah, I do worry about the drop, especially when you got Jerry Jeudy in that receiving core already. It's like, you might have some balls in the ground, but guy can get freaking open, man. All right, Chicago Bears. I've loved the fit of Emmanuel McNeil-Warren in this defense, but I think for them specifically, I can't pass on Akeem Mesidor at this point in time. You need anyone to make an impact on the defensive line. I think uniquely a guy who's as good as Mesidor doesn't fall to this point in the draft often. So we all know why. It's because he's going to be 25 before he's drafted. But I think for that defense specifically, you just need a guy who can get after the passer, and he can.
Yeah, they need somebody with a different pitch than the pass rushers that they have. And Mesidor is sort of the floor. It's sort of the opposite of Austin Booker, where the ceiling is sky high for Booker. The floor is a little lower, but he's also still very young. Mesidor is a little older. The floor is high. Ceiling isn't that high. So you kind of you have both types of the same player. 26, we're building the exciting whites. Dylan Thieneman is going to be their pick here. They need speed in that secondary. And I know they've been clamoring for a receiver, and I think Denzel Boston would actually be pretty fun, but with Jim Leonard changing the defense to a 3-4, Brandon Beane said during the combine they're going to be switching to a 3-4. I do think their transition on defensive line will be a little more difficult, which makes me also consider Caden McDonald there. But Thieneman is going to go first round. I think they need speed in that secondary.
Yes, speed in the secondary is the big thing there. And he much different pace than any of their other safeties. All right, 49ers. Given the Trent Williams, whatever, I assume he's going to be back there, but the posturing in that position, they just need a tackle to at least develop. So I'm going Max Ihanachor here, the Arizona State offensive tackle, freak athlete, tested off the charts in Indy. Obviously, a little bit more of a project, but even if assuming you bring Trent Williams back, you don't need him to play right away, or if you do, he could play at guard. So not just a good long-term play here if you're the 49ers.
Yeah, they need somebody to take the place of Colton McKivitz, but also be the future when Trent Williams decides to hang it up. Or in this case, Trent Williams might also not be on the 49ers next year, given their contract issues. So they need somebody with some athleticism at that tackle spot, and Ihanachor has a lot of that. The Texans are on the clock here. So it's difficult because there have been rumors that the Texans are going to move Ariante Ursary to right tackle. And if they're moving Ursary to right tackle, I don't think there's a left tackle on the board that you feel comfortable with. But I also think, given the way that this has fallen, I think I'm going to take Blake Miller here.
Yeah.
From tackle from Clemson, and just leave Ursary at left tackle, because quite frankly, you just need talent on the offensive line. You just need to bring in as many bodies as possible. And Miller, he does have some issue with his anchor, especially in his core, but he's tall, long arms, and can move in space. That's what you need to corner the market on.
Yeah, if you didn't draft him here, I was for sure taking him at 31 for the New England Patriots. That's why I think he sneaks into the first round, because the desperation is so great. This is a dream scenario, though, for the Los Angeles Rams, in my opinion. Avion Terrell sitting, staring at him at pick 29, a team that would take a sub 5'11 corner and just fits their defense perfectly. They leave the first round with Peter Woods and Avion Terrell, recreating the magic that was 2025 Clemson.
The Rams need Avion Terrell's like energy or his vibes on that defense. He plays with negativity in his heart. That's why I love him. He plays so much bigger than his size. And I think the Rams saw what Devin Witherspoon did for the Seahawks defense and sort of hope they can get that from Terrell. They play with the same urgency, while I think Witherspoon is more explosive. They play with that same urgency as run defenders and playing the ball in the air. 30. This is a very interesting pick for the Broncos, because I don't think there's a running back that I like. There's not really a tight end that you like here. I don't know if Denzel Boston is exactly the fit that they want at that receiver spot. So I'm going to go Caden McDonald here, and I'm beefing up the run defense. If we keep watching what happens to the Broncos defense in the playoffs, they keep getting run over. Like they keep, when the thing that you want to do against the Broncos defense is get big, run them over. We're going to stop. We're going to nip that in the bud right now with Caden McDonald. No more running us over.
Yeah, that's a tough defense. That's just kind of their one minor issue. Like the one hole to poke is now just plugged, quite literally and physically. All right, my guy, since you passed on him, I'm going Omar Cooper Jr. I love his tape. I think he's a first-round receiver all day long for the New England Patriots. Give me Omar Cooper Jr. pairing with Drake May.
Let's get some explosives going in that offense. And his ability to create separation from the slot, I think for me, what really sold me on him was going back and watching 2024 and watching him play on the outside.
Yes.
What you really need to see that to be like, okay, I see the vision as a first-round player. I do think he's a little more like you want to move him around, but he can play on the outside. I think he has the skills too. 32. This is where it stops for Denzel Boston. I think you just keep him home. Given that Torrey Horton tore his ACL, Rashid Shaheed's a free agent, I think that they're just going to need somebody at receiver. And Denzel Boston didn't have the greatest combine, but the dude can play. I'm much higher on Denzel Boston than most others.
Yeah, and there's just not like needs on the team, right? One of the best teams of all time. You don't have a lot of spots for improvement. I think wide receiver qualifies as one. There you have it. Our first round mock. We'll go through it real quick. Fernando Mendoza 1 to the Raiders. Jets, Arvell Reese. Cardinals, Spencer Fano. Titans, Ruben Bain. Giants at 5, Sonny Styles. Browns, Monroe Freeling, the tackle. Second tackle off the board here. Commanders go David Bailey, Texas Tech edge. Saints, Jeremiah Love. Chiefs, Francis Maui Noah. Bengals, Caleb Downs. Dolphins, Carnell Tate. Cowboys at 12 go Mansour Delane, first corner off the board there. Rams go Peter Woods, Clemson defensive tackle. Ravens, Vega Ioane. Penn State guard. Bucks go Caden Proctor to play him at guard. Jets go Mekhi Lemon. Lions, Jermon McCoy, Tennessee corner. Vikings, Caleb Banks, the Florida DT. Panthers at 19, Utah tackle, Caleb Lomu. The Cowboys from the Packers pick, CJ Allen, Georgia linebacker. 21, Steelers, Jordan Tyson, Arizona State wide receiver. Chargers go Keldrick Falk. Eagles, Kenyon Sadiq. Browns go KC Concepcion. Bears, Akeem Mesidor. Bills, Dylan Thieneman. 49ers, Maxi Honachor. Texans at 28, Blake Miller, Clemson tackle. Rams, another Clemson guy, cornerback Avion Terrell. And to round it out, Broncos, Caden McDonald, Ohio State DT. Patriots, Omar Cooper, the Indiana wide receiver. And then Denzel Boston, the Washington receiver. Goes 32 to the Seahawks. there's a first round mock. We will be back a little later this week as free agency comes up. It's next week, so we'll be seeing more trades, more deals getting finalized as the week goes on. We'll be previewing that on Wednesday. Until then, keep pushing.